What's going on, guys? So, done the external part of the ear. We're gonna do the middle ear now. So all this black is really just general information. So I'll read through it. It's pretty intuitive, but some of it might not be. So it's an air-filled cavity. So this is the air-filled cavity, and then the inner ear is the fluid one. But it has sound vibrations. It's lined by mucus. It's located in the petrous portion of our temporal bone. Here are some arteries. So the anterior tympanic artery goes through it, the stylomastoid artery, and the labyrinth artery run through it. It's innervated by cranial nerve. Well, these following things are innervated by cranial nerve 9, middle ear, mastoid region, and the pharyngotympanic tube. So that tube, it's also called the auditory tube or the eustachian tube. We were asked to know these from lateral to medial, malleus, incus, and then stapes, or stapes, however you want to call them. Malleus is where the sound starts, and the stapes is the last bone to transfer the sound into the inner ear. We have these two muscles that, I'm sure there's more, but these two muscles that we're asked to be known about. Sorry, there's a little hair. So stapedius, it's a small skeletal muscle, and it stops the stapes or stapes, and it is innervated by cranial nerve 7. And then the tensor tympani, it follows the auditory tube to the malleus, and it stops. What would you think? The malleus. And then it's innervated by V3. So here is the dreadful box that we talk about. Here's the roof. Here's the floor. Anterior portion, posterior portion, medial, and then we can't see the lateral. We're looking through it. So we'll start with the roof. It's easy. The tegmen tympani, or bone of the roof. In our lecture, she talked about she was doing a dissection and she pulled the brain out or whatever, and then just chiseled away just ever so slightly through that roof. It's just thin bone. You would end up right in the middle ear. We'll go to the floor now. It's a thin bone again, and it's just barely superior to the internal jugular vein. So the internal jugular vein runs right underneath it. The tympanic caniculus runs through it as well. So right here is that tympanic caniculus, and then it goes up into this promontory, which we'll talk about in just a second. Okay, let's talk about the anterior wall. So here's that pharyngotympanic tube, the auditory canal, or the eustachian tube, just different names for it. We said earlier it's innervated by cranial nerve 9. We also have the lesser petrosal nerve and sympathetic fibers, and all these sympathetic fibers, they run on the internal carotid, right? And so the name of this guy is the caroticotympanic nerve, and it enters through here. Okay, let's go posterior. So we have the mastoid antrum, which is right here, and it links up to the mastoid air cells. And then we have the stapedius muscle right here, and its attachment is called a pyramid, something like that. And then we have and then this muscle attaches to the stapes. And like we said down here, the stapedius stops the stapes, which is important. Then we have the cranial nerve 7 again. Okay. So maybe the most stuff on this is the medial wall. So we have the promontory, which I mentioned. It's just this protuberance created by the cochlea. So it's pretty much the inner ear, that cochlea leaning against this middle ear, and making that protuberance. We have the tympanic plexus, which runs right on top of this this promontory. We have the oval window, which is where the sound goes in, and this attaches to the stapes, right? So malleus, incus, stapes, and then the stapes sends this message into the inner ear. So I'm going to call this guy stapes, and I'm going to call this guy the round window. So sound comes out the round window, or in her notes it says pressure is released from the cochlea out the round window. And then we have the tensor tympani, which is attached to the malleus, and this stops the malleus. And then so that tenses the tympanic membrane. It's part of V3 is what our notes said. So just to quickly talk about the tympanic membrane, it is the lateral wall, so that's what we're looking through, and the chorda tympani lies along the tympanic membrane. But yeah, so this is pretty much the middle ear. That's all you really need to know. In my opinion, you might need to know more, but we'll find out.